It is Justine Greening, the former Education Secretary, who's been getting everyone talking in Westminster this morning after she has called for a second Brexit referendum, labelling the Prime Minister's Brexit deal a fudge. She says that Theresa May's proposals of the Chequers Agreement to the Brexit White Paper are the worst of both worlds, and says the final decision should be given back to the people and out of deadlocked politicians' hands. Let's speak now to Justine Greening, Conservative MP for Putney and former Education Secretary. Good morning to you.
Morning, how are you?
Very well indeed. Well, why do you think that a second referendum is needed? We had a referendum, we got a result. The Prime Minister was elected as Tory leader based on delivering that. She had a manifesto pledge that said she would deliver it. Why don't we just need the Prime Minister to deliver her own pledges?
Because Parliament's reached an impasse and I think we're at stalemate, and whether it's the Prime Minister's deal, which I think wouldn't be supported by Parliament, whether it's no deal that I think wouldn't be supported by Parliament, Parliament can't find a route forward on this. I think we've tried for the last 2 years, but we have to recognise that we failed, and I think we need to be pragmatic, face up to that reality, and then work our way through what that means. And to my mind, the only way that we can therefore find a clear direction forward on Brexit is to go back to the British people and put the decision back in their hands.
When you say put the decision back in their hands, you don't mean another Remain, Leave binary decision. What would you be offering on that ballot paper in an ideal world?
I'm saying it needs to offer the three choices that in practice we have. Either a soft Brexit, which is what the Prime Minister's offering. I think in practice that's the worst of all worlds. I think whether you're a Remain voter that thinks, well, hang on, if we're having all the rules, we might as well be sat around the table influencing them, or whether you're one of the many Leave voters who've certainly been in touch with me saying, this isn't what we voted for. It's not the clean break from a European Union. I think that, nevertheless, needs to be on the ballot paper. I think a clean break does need to be on the ballot paper too, a no-deal scenario, in other words. And I think, of course, staying in the EU is the third route forward. And I think people should be able to flag up and vote for their first and second choices, so what they want, but then vote for what they would have if that's not a route that other people support.
And so once the third option, the least favourite option, those second preferences are redistributed, so basically everyone would get either their first or second preference.
That kind of approach does tend to get you a much greater consensus behind a winning option. And I think it's how we elect mayors across the country. People know how it works. It's eminently workable. And I think it genuinely does give us a route through. And I think, going back to the Leavers and what they voted for, I think we have to recognise that they're not getting the Brexit that they were voting for. And that has to be on the ballot paper. And I think for many Remainers, they obviously have deep misgivings. But in the end, I think because Parliament's reached an impasse, there is no other way to get a direction other than to go back to the British people.
But you say, look, this is a voting system that it's kind of referendum for mayors. But actually, look, we talk about turnout for mayoral votes, in the 20 percentage points as opposed to the 72% who came out to vote on the Brexit issue. Why do you feel that the Remain option should be on? I mean, a soft Brexit stroke, a no-deal Brexit is one thing that possibly could be considered. But we've already voted for Leave. Why would we need to have Remain back on that ballot paper?
Because I think in practice it's one of the three principal options.
Well, it's not. We've already voted to leave and we've already triggered our... I mean, look, listen, MPs, you talk about an impasse in Parliament, MPs voted to have there was a manifesto commitment from David Cameron that there would be a referendum. He won that election. Then MPs voted for there to be an EU referendum. Then MPs voted to trigger Article 50. MPs have voted for the EU withdrawal bill. Why do you think Remain is still on the menu?
Because, again, I think if you talk to Leave voters, a lot of them will say, look, we're either in or we're out. We want to be out, but if we can't have a proper clean break, then we're better off being around the table influencing the rules instead of having to accept them.
I've not met a single Leave voter who said that. Not one.
Well,
not one.
I think that we have to structure a referendum so that people really can choose between the clear routes forward. But I think what is clear to me is that, regrettably, Parliament will not be able to take that decisive decision that Britain needs.
Isn't the real problem that we've got what Jacob Rees-Mogg described as a Prime Minister who is a Remainer who has remained a Remainer. Those were the words he used on Sunday Politics on the BBC yesterday. And that actually Theresa May got herself elected as Tory leader because she promised that she would deliver on Brexit.
I think this isn't about the Prime Minister, actually. I think she's done her best to come up with a workable compromise. I hope that was possible myself. But what we've actually got from Chequers is a compromise that it seems people don't accept. And also, I don't believe in practice it will be workable in the long run. So I think, again, we need to accept that. And I think part of the problem here has been Parliament obviously operates on party political lines, but Brexit cuts across all of that. So really, our political wiring in Westminster isn't designed to effectively deal with something like Brexit. And that's why, in the end, I think all you can do is now have the clear choices on the table for the British people and then ask them to make their own decision.
But isn't one of the reasons, again, that we had the first referendum was because there was a situation where the House of Parliament didn't, and in the Lords or the Commons, didn't represent the people's views on this. Of course, there was always going to be this impasse, but we did see that 85% of people at the last general election did actually vote for a party, Tories and Labour, which promised to enact Brexit. I can see a point where there could have to be some sort of referendum. I could imagine that scenario happening if there wasn't going to be another general election. But I still can't work out why anyone would think in their right minds that Remain would still be an option. That is not an option that the British people have endorsed.
But I think that in the end, what I'm saying is the practical options in front of people. Now, if people don't want to take those options, that's absolutely their right. I'm saying that they should have the right to have their voices heard at the ballot box. If we were to have a free vote in Parliament, and I would walk through whatever lobby I felt was best for our country, I know that whichever lobby I went through, I would be disenfranchising a whole load of voters in my own constituency. To me, on something as important as Brexit, that's totally unacceptable.
No. People losing a vote, being on the minority side, isn't being disenfranchised. It's being in a democracy.
I think on something as important as Brexit, when you're making an argument that somehow I should have a vote, but the other people in our country should not, Parliament's at an impasse. And I think you either recognise that reality or you continue to put your head in the sand and say, well, we've got a result. But actually, Parliament cannot deliver on that result now, and that's why we have to go back to the public.
OK, you say Parliament can't deliver. Parliament is choosing not to deliver. What do you say to Steve, who's a listener, who's just tweeted me to say, basically, Justine Greening wants to split the Leave vote into two answers, so a soft Brexit and a no-deal Brexit, and the Remain vote left to one answer. And, of course, we always know what would happen in that scenario. Remain would win. What would you say to him?
That's why I'm proposing a first and second preference, so that people who want a version of Brexit can vote for that. If they are determined to have Brexit, then they can vote for the other alternative. People who want to say, look, we're either in or we're out, can vote for that too. I can't say what's right for the British people. Only they can do that for themselves. But I do think they should have the right at the ballot box now to have their voices heard, given that Parliament has reached an impasse.
Now, you were a Remain campaigner during the EU referendum. You've got a seat, you grew up in Rotherham, your seat where 68% of people voted to leave the EU. You're not, what a better expression, please excuse, one of the usual suspects in terms of the Nicky Morgans, the Anna Zubis, others who've been campaigning on this front. A lot of people, though, might be suspicious that this is all part of this very subtle, ongoing, long-term plot to keep us in the EU. There's a growing feeling among a lot of Eurosceptics I've been speaking to, that echoing what the former Chief of Staff to David Davis, Stuart Jackson, had to say, accusing Number 10 of a long-planned coup d'etat by the establishment. And that this is basically the old EU establishment saying, yes, we'll give people a vote, but only if they vote the right way. And if you don't vote the right way, we'll just keep you voting until you vote the right way.
Not at all. I couldn't disagree with it more. At the moment, people who voted Leave are faced with a Prime Minister's version of Leave and Brexit that they don't support, and they'll vote it down. I think that is one of the reasons why Parliament is facing an impasse. You could argue, well, you've got a Brexit. It might not be your perfect form. Why don't you get behind it? I actually think that their concerns about the fact that this is not a clean break are valid ones. I don't think we should just ignore them. But it's clear to me that this Parliament cannot deliver a route forward on Brexit decisively, and therefore you have to put it back to the British people. And, I had hoped that over the last 2 years we would be able to get behind an overall approach. But it's clear to me that we can't do that. Parliament's failed to do that, and therefore it's time to take it away from all those backroom deals, which is what's happening all the time in Parliament, and actually put that decision back in the hands of the British people.
What about an alternative, putting it back in the hands of the British people by way of a general election?
Because this isn't a party political issue, and that's the whole problem with Westminster. You've got party politics and a system designed to work on those lines, trying to handle something that is above party politics. And therefore, having a general election also would simply be posing the wrong kind of question, whether you want blue team or red team, when actually the question is different. It's what kind of a Brexit deal do you support? And that's why a referendum is the only way forward.